I ripped this log into thirds so these pieces will fit on the sawmill. When I cut this log off, I got a good flush cut. The two cuts came together within about 1/8 inch of each other. This lip between multiple cuts is only about 1/8 inch, maybe a little less. On this end of the tree, my bar is able to go all the way through. On the other end, it's much bigger, and the bar only goes part way through. After I show you how I do this one, I'll show you how I did that other one. What? Never mind all that? You just want to watch the tree fall down and go boom again? Should I do it? Should I play that again? I kind of want to watch it too. That never gets old. Okay, we'll watch the tree fall down again, then we'll get back to this. See, it never gets old. But now it's time to get back down to business here. I don't want to cover compression wood, tension wood in this video. That's going to be for another one some other day. But in this case, this log was suspended up off the ground. You want to cut the compression wood first, which in this case is on the bottom. Then you cut your tension wood last. Well, there I go, talking about compression wood and tension wood. Kind of hard to do a video about bucking logs without getting into that. But anyway, we want to cut from the bottom first, then the top first. The challenge with that is, you make your bottom cut, then the top cut. What are the chances those cuts are going to line up? If it was the opposite, where the log was suspended in the middle, you'd cut here first, then cut up this way, then it's the same thing. How do you get those cuts to line up? That's what this video is about, how to get those cuts to line up. And watching the tree fall down and go boom, of course. We got to put that in there. Then you end up with uneven cuts here with a lip sticking out on one side. Then you have to cut that lip off. Then take that lip, throw it in the bushes, so hopefully nobody will see it, so they don't think you don't know what you're doing. Now I'll show you how I did this to where there is no lip to make it look like I think I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I started with my first cut. How's that for stating the obvious? Aren't you glad you clicked on this video? That's some high quality information there. Since this particular log had the compression wood in the bottom, we cut into the compression wood. Don't want to go too far that it starts to pinch. Instead of pulling the saw out, if I was to pull the saw out, start a new cut, there's a good chance this cut is going to be on a different plane than the original cut. That's one of the ways you can end up with that goofy misaligned lip that you have to cut off and hide in the bushes. Instead of pulling the saw out of the cut, I kept the saw in the cut, came up like this. And what that does is it keeps the bar on the same plane. Now instead of starting the top cut from a new plane, I can put it back inside this cut and use this cut as a guide to continue this top cut on the same plane. Before the top cut meets the bottom cut, I want it to meet on this side first. So when there's a little bit that breaks off, I want that to break off toward the middle instead of out here and tearing things out on the edge. That's how I did it on the small end where the bar goes all the way through. Now I'll show you how I did it on the big end where the bar does not go all the way through. On this end, I'll show you how I did the same thing, cutting a big log using only this short, stubby 32-inch bar that won't go all the way through. On this end, I did mess up a little bit, got one of these cuts misaligned, ended up with a ledge here. I think I called it a lip earlier. About a 1/2 inch off or so. Right at the tips, probably 3/4 of an inch. Not quite enough to want to cut that off flush afterward and hide that piece in the bushes. When you end up with a ledge that's 2, 3, 4 inches wide, that's when you want to cut it off and hide it in the bushes so nobody sees it. But this is good that I did that because now you can see what I'm talking about. I can demonstrate what I mean by the two cuts not aligning and leaving a ledge. Yeah, I misaligned that on purpose for demonstration purposes. I like that story. I'm gonna go with it. Just like the other log, this one was suspended off the ground. The compression wood was on the bottom. When the compression wood's on the bottom, normally I would start from the bottom, cut the compression wood first. But in this case, I didn't do that. Reason being, I'm cutting these for my dad to put on his sawmill. He doesn't have a lot of extra trim on the ends. Because of that, I want this to be extra square. I want this cut to be very square in relation to the tree, perpendicular to the rest of the tree. To make a really square cut, I'm better at visualizing square if I come in from the top. If I come in from the bottom, there's a log here in the way and I can't even see where my bar is. I can't tell as well how square it is. But here, I can see the bar, I can see the log. By starting the cut here, I know I'm more likely to be square with the rest of the tree. This is where I started the plane. It's going to be the template for all the other cuts, except for that one that got messed up here. Since my bar isn't going to go all the way through the log, I needed to do an extra cut over here. Once I established this plane, I should have went more like this and stayed in the plane, but I got a little bit clumsy, came too far out of the plane, which threw this side a little bit off. Cut down like this, brought the tip around to a point where I knew I'd be able to reach it from the bottom. Instead of pulling the saw out, starting a new cut on a new plane, I kept the saw inside the cut, came around like this, bored straight into the log, came down like this. Then make the final cut. I didn't have to bore into it like that. I could have came down like this. I decided to go with the bore cut because it kept the bar even more inside that cut. If I was to make that transition with the tip inside, it would probably do okay, but with just the tip in the bar making that transition, there's more chance of having happen what happened up here. It may seem like I did this cut a little bit overly complicated, and I probably did. In a normal case where I wasn't trying to get it really square, I probably would have started down here, cut the compression wood, come up like this, same as I did on the other log, come around here, then make the final cut. That would be a more simple way to do it, and that would be totally fine. There are a lot of ways this could be done. Different techniques for going around the log, getting it done. Other people would do it differently than I would. Doesn't mean they are wrong, doesn't mean I'm wrong, doesn't mean my way is better than theirs. It's just the way I did it. The main point of this video is to keep the saw in the cut. That's how I do it, to keep the saw on the same plane, to get those cuts to match up or come close to matching up. Once I make that first cut, that's the template for the rest of the log. I'm going to cut the rest of the log in a way to where the saw can stay inside that cut the whole way through. If you watch many of my videos, you may notice I don't always do this. There are a lot of times where I will just cut from the bottom, pull the saw out and cut from the top, especially on smaller material where I'm not specifically trying to get a good flush cut on a large log. In a lot of cases, if your cuts don't line up just right and you have a little ledge on your end piece, it doesn't really matter. It's not a problem. But this is the way you could do it in a case where it does matter and you don't want that lip or ledge. The right tool for the right job. That's it for this one. I was going to leave you with a wise quote I heard the other day, but instead I'll leave you with some bloopers. When I cut this log off, I get a good flush cut. The two cuts tame together. They tame together. When I cut this log off, I got a good flush cut. The two cuts when I cut this log off, I got a good flush cut. The two cuts Why can't I say came together? It's not that hard.